The film opens in a dimly lit abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul, where the atmosphere is thick with tension and the metallic scent of blood. Min-ji Park, dressed in an impeccable charcoal business suit worth more than most people's monthly salary, stands surrounded by the unconscious bodies of 3 brutal gang members. Their weapons, brass knuckles, switchblades, and a sleek pistol, lie scattered across the concrete floor, testament to a fight they never had a chance of winning. Blood drips rhythmically from Min-ji's polished Oxford dress shoes as he methodically wipes clean an ornate knife, its handle inscribed with traditional Korean symbols. His movements are precise and practiced, showing years of experience that no legitimate businessman should possess. The only sound in the cavernous space is the soft cloth against steel until a notification sound breaks the tense silence. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. It's a message from his wife asking about their adopted daughter Ji-eun, and if the bullying at her prestigious arts academy has stopped. Min-ji's eyes narrow dangerously as he turns to the last conscious thug, grabbing him by the collar of his expensive but now bloodied designer jacket. "Now about my daughter," he says with chilling calmness, making it clear that Seoul's most feared shadow assassin has been awakened. The thug's eyes widen in recognition. He finally realizes who he's dealing with, but it's far too late. The scene shifts to 3 weeks earlier, where morning sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Min-ji's luxury penthouse overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. The space is a perfect blend of modern minimalism and traditional Korean aesthetics, with priceless art pieces carefully curated to showcase success without ostentation. Min-ji sits at his custom-made rosewood desk, calmly sipping traditional green tea from a centuries-old ceramic cup, while reviewing security contracts for his legitimate business empire. His company, Securities, has become the go-to firm for Seoul's elite, protecting their assets and secrets with a discretion that comes from understanding the dark underbelly of the city all too well. His wife, Soo-min, approaches with worry etched across her elegant features. At 42, she carries herself with the grace of old money, though her eyes hold a sharpness that suggests she's more than just another wealthy housewife. She informs him that Ji-eun's teacher called again. Their 17-year-old daughter has been skipping classes at the prestigious Seoul Arts Academy, where the children of Korea's most powerful families pursue their artistic dreams under heavy security and even heavier expectations. Min-ji dismisses it initially as teenage rebellion, but Soo-min's concern runs deeper. She's noticed changes in their daughter, missing art supplies, unexplained withdrawals from her bank account, and hushed phone conversations that stop when anyone enters the room. "This isn't like her," Soo-min insists, carefully arranging herself on the Italian leather sofa across from his desk. She reminds him that Ji-eun isn't just any teenager. She's the daughter of the woman who once saved Min-ji's life before the infamous Busan incident, an event that reshaped the Korean criminal underworld and left scars that still haven't healed. The mention of Busan makes Soo-min flinch, and Min-ji's hardened expression softens slightly. They both remember that night 12 years ago, when Min-ji carried a bleeding woman into their home, her 5-year-old daughter clutching his leg in terror. He made a promise to Ji-eun's dying mother that night, to protect her daughter and give her a normal life far from the shadows of his past. The woman had been one of Korea's top undercover agents, her cover blown during an operation that prevented a war between rival crime syndicates. Her last act had been to save Min-ji, then a rising enforcer, showing him a path out of the darkness. He honored her sacrifice by leaving his old life behind, or so he thought. But as Soo-min pointedly observes, his focus on protecting Ji-eun from his world might be blinding him to the troubles she's facing in her own. Their conversation is interrupted by a call from Seoul Arts Academy, the principal's tone carrying an urgency that makes Min-ji's combat-honed instincts tingle. 20 minutes later, his sleek black Mercedes pulls into the academy's private parking lot, the school's neo-Gothic architecture looming above like a fortress of privilege. In the principal's office, they find Ji-eun with dried tears on her face, a barely concealed bruise on her wrist visible beneath the sleeve of her designer uniform. Principal Young-ho, a man whose political connections usually make him untouchable, uncomfortably explains that there was an incident. Ji-eun tried to stop some students who were extorting money from classmates. The principal's nervous demeanor as he mentions the students' influential parents doesn't escape Minji's notice. His hand tightens on his briefcase, though his face remains impassive, years of training allowing him to hide the rage building inside. Outside the office, in a secluded corner of the academy's sculptured gardens, Ji-eun finally breaks her silence. The students aren't just bullies. They're working for the Dragon Phoenix gang, using the prestigious academy as a recruitment ground for something sinister. They target vulnerable students, using a combination of threats and blackmail to force them into their organization. As she trembles while speaking, Minji places a gentle hand on her shoulder, promising to handle it. "That's what Mom used to say," Ji-eun whispers. "Before she—" The words hang heavy between them, a reminder of past tragedy that threatens to repeat itself. Minji's phone buzzes with a message from one of his contacts in the underground. Dragon Phoenix, new player, taking over schools, backed by someone big, connected to Busan. The last word makes his blood run cold. He looks at Ji-eun, seeing not just his adopted daughter, but the echo of a promise made years ago in a Busan safe house to a dying woman. A promise to keep her daughter away from the darkness that claimed her. He's failed that promise once. As he watches Ji-eun walk back to class, her shoulders straight despite her fear, he makes a silent vow. The shadows he left behind are about to learn why he was once called the Ghost of Seoul. That evening, Minji's penthouse transforms into a command center of surveillance feeds and encrypted communications. Spread across his home office's massive desk are student files obtained through channels best left unmentioned, each one connected to the Dragon Phoenix gang's operations. Soo-min enters with a fresh pot of tea, her face tight with concern as she sees her husband slip back into old habits. The soft blue light from multiple monitors illuminates stacks of documents, bank records, social media profiles, and surveillance photos of students who don't look like victims, but predators wearing private school uniforms. "I thought we agreed to leave this life behind," she says quietly, setting down the tea with practiced elegance. Minji doesn't look up from a particularly interesting file, a student named Tae-sung Kim, son of a prominent judge, whose recent banking activities show suspicious patterns of large deposits and withdrawals. "Sometimes the past doesn't leave us a choice," he responds, his voice carrying a weight that speaks of years spent in shadows. The Dragon Phoenix isn't just bullying kids. They're building an army of privileged soldiers, using the academy as their recruiting ground. His investigation reveals a pattern more disturbing than simple extortion. The gang has infiltrated multiple prestigious schools across Seoul, targeting students with influential parents. Their methodology is sophisticated. They start with small favors, then escalate to blackmail, using the victim's own privilege against them. What parent would risk their child's future by exposing their involvement in criminal activities? It's a perfect system of self-perpetuating silence. A notification pings on one of his screens. Facial recognition software has identified several known Dragon Phoenix members entering an exclusive Noribang in Gangnam. Among them is Tae-sung Kim, walking with the confidence of someone who believes their family name makes them untouchable. Minji's eyes narrow as he spots Ji-eun's bruised wrist in a security camera still from the academy, Tae-sung's distinctive watch visible in the frame. Soo-min recognizes the look in her husband's eyes. "Whatever you're planning," she warns, "remember that Ji-eun needs a father, not a ghost." Minji finally looks up, his expression softening slightly. "I promise to protect her," he says. Sometimes protection requires sending messages that can't be ignored. He stands, moving to a painting on the wall, an original Park Seo-bo worth millions. Behind it lies a safe containing items from his previous life, tools he hoped never to use again. Meanwhile, at the Seoul Arts Academy's dormitory, Ji-eun sits alone in her room, her sketchbook open but untouched. Her phone buzzes with messages from blocked numbers, threats wrapped in false friendship. "Your father's money can't protect you forever," reads one. "Smart girls know when to play along," says another. She thinks about telling Minji, Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. But the memory of her mother's fate stops her. The last thing she wants is to be the reason another parent dies protecting her. A soft knock at her door reveals her roommate, Mina, whose designer clothes barely hide fresh bruises. "They want us at the Golden Dragon Noribang tonight," Mina whispers, fear evident in her trembling hands. Tae-sung says it's not a request. Ji-eun knows what happens at these parties. Students forced to entertain gang members and their business associates, each compromising photo and video becoming another link in their chains of control. Across the city, Min-ji enters a small, traditional tea house in a quiet alley of Insadong. The elderly owner, Master Chang, greets him with a slight bow that speaks of old respect and older debts. They sit in a private room, where the steam from their teacups mixes with incense smoke. "The dragon phoenix has grown bold," Chang says, sliding a wooden box across the table. They forget why the old families feared the ghost of Seoul. Inside the box lies a jade pendant, a symbol that once granted safe passage through the underworld's deadliest territories. "I need information," Min-ji says, leaving the pendant untouched, "about their leadership, their real backers." Chang's weathered face shows concern. "Some doors are better left closed, old friend. The Dragon Phoenix serves new masters, ones who remember Busan differently than you do." The mention of Busan brings a flash of pain to Min-ji's eyes, quickly masked. "They've targeted my daughter's school, made it personal." Chang nods slowly, understanding the weight of those words. "There's a meeting tonight, Golden Dragon Noribang in Gangnam. The young ones will be there trying to prove themselves." He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. "But be warned. The Dragon Phoenix isn't just recruiting students. They're building connections that reach into the highest levels of society. Even ghosts can be hunted if enough powerful people wish it." As Min-ji drives home, his phone buzzes with a text from Ji-eun. "Don't worry about me tonight, staying late at the studio to finish a project." Years of training tell him it's a lie, but it's the fear beneath the words that makes him change direction, heading instead to a warehouse where he keeps resources his legitimate security business shouldn't possess. Sometimes he realizes being a good father means embracing the very darkness he wanted to protect his daughter from. The Golden Dragon Noribang rises like a neon temple in Gangnam's upscale district, its private rooms offering discretion to Seoul's elite at prices that ensure exclusivity. Min-ji parks his matte black Mercedes in a shadowed corner of the nearby parking structure, his movements unhurried as he checks the equipment in his trunk. The security cameras covering the building's entrance have been experiencing convenient technical difficulties for the past hour, a reminder that Park Securities' legitimate contracts can serve multiple purposes. Inside his car, Min-ji reviews the building's layout on his tablet. The Dragon Phoenix occupies the VIP suite on the top floor, a sprawling space more resembling a luxury apartment than a karaoke room. His phone lights up with another message from one of his old contacts. 12 guards, armed. Yang Jin-woo himself is there. The name makes Min-ji pause. Yang Jin-woo, the Dragon Phoenix's public face, a man who mingles with politicians and celebrities while his organization destroys young lives. More importantly, he was in Busan 12 years ago. Meanwhile, in the VIP suite, Ji-eun and Mina sit rigidly on expensive leather sofas, surrounded by other students from prominent families. The room reeks of expensive liquor and fear. Tae-sung Kim holds court like a young prince, his school uniform replaced by a designer suit that mimics the style of the older gang members present. A businessman in his 50s, wearing a watch worth more than most cars, leers at the gathered students while pretending to sing a ballad. Yang Jin-woo enters the room, his tailored suit and gentle smile masking a predator's eyes. "Welcome to your future," he announces to the students, his voice cultured and smooth. "The Dragon Phoenix isn't just a family, we're a network. Your parents opened doors for you, we'll show you how to walk through them." He approaches Ji-eun, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You look just like your mother," he says softly, making her blood run cold. Before she can respond, the lights flicker. In the security room, 2 guards slump unconscious over their monitors. Min-ji moves through the building like a shadow, his expensive suit replaced by dark tactical gear. He reaches the service elevator, using a security card cloned from data in his company's systems. As he ascends, he recalls Chang's warning about powerful people hunting ghosts. But Chang hadn't understood. Sometimes the ghost does the hunting. Back in the VIP suite, Yang is explaining the membership requirements to the gathered students. Your parents' influence opens doors, he says, but loyalty requires proof. He gestures to some older students who begin distributing small packets of pills. Tonight you'll help us entertain some very important guests. Consider it your initiation. Ji-eun's hand trembles as she holds the packet, remembering her mother's last words about fighting back against darkness. The businessman with the expensive watch approaches Ji-eun, his smile predatory. Before he can reach her, the room's lights cut out completely. When they return seconds later, 2 of the guards by the door are missing. Yang's smile falters for the first time. Check the hallway, he orders, but his words are drowned out by the sudden blast of a popular girl group song through the room's expensive sound system, cranked to maximum volume. In the chaos that follows, Minji moves through the dark spaces between the strobing lights like a vengeful spirit. Years of training take over, each movement precise, each strike calculated. Guards fall before they can draw their weapons. The students huddle in corners, their phones unable to connect to any networks. Through it all, the deafening music continues, masking the sounds of combat. Yang recognizes the technique. He's seen it before, in Busan. Ghost, he whispers, genuine fear cracking his polished veneer. He grabs Ji-eun, pressing a gun to her head. Come out, he shouts over the music, or she'll join her mother. The lights stabilize, revealing Minji standing in the center of the room, surrounded by unconscious guards. His expression remains calm, but his eyes burn with a cold fury that makes even Tae-sung step back. You killed her mother, Minji says quietly, his voice somehow carrying over the music. Made it look like a rival gang, all to protect your new business model. Yang's hand trembles slightly. The world changed, he responds. We adapted. These kids, they're the future, connected, privileged, and perfectly placed to help us grow. He tightens his grip on Ji-eun. Walk away, ghost. Some shadows are too deep even for you. Ji-eun meets her father's eyes, seeing not the successful businessman who adopted her, but the warrior who once carried her to safety through the streets of Busan. In that moment, she understands that sometimes fighting darkness requires stepping into it. She drives her elbow back, just as Minji taught her in secret training sessions she thought were just bonding moments. Yang's grip loosens, just enough. The moment Ji-eun breaks free from Yang's grip becomes a catalyst for chaos. Minji moves with lethal precision, covering the distance between them in 2 fluid steps. Yang fires his gun, but Minji is already shifting his trajectory, the bullet grazing his tactical gear as he drives his shoulder into Yang's solar plexus. The gun clatters to the floor, sliding under a luxurious sofa. The remaining conscious guards rush forward, but they're met by a level of violence they've never encountered in their street battles. Minji fights with the efficiency of someone who sees combat as mathematics rather than emotion. Each strike targets nerve clusters and pressure points, his movements economical and devastating. 2 guards go down clutching crushed windpipes. Another collapses with a dislocated knee. Through it all, his face remains eerily calm, like a teacher demonstrating proper technique to particularly slow students. Tae-sung, his privileged worldview crumbling, pulls out a switchblade and lunges at Ji-eun. You brought this on us, he screams, his designer suit now stained with spilled drinks and fear-induced sweat. But Ji-eun isn't the same girl he bruised days ago. She sidesteps his wild swing, using the defensive techniques Minji taught her during what she'd thought were just casual father-daughter bonding sessions. Her elbow connects with Tae-sung's jaw, dropping him beside his scattered pills. The businessman with the expensive watch tries to escape through a private exit, followed by several terrified students. They find the door locked, the electronic security system displaying an error message carrying Park Securities logo. Minji had planned this trap methodically, using his legitimate business's contracts to turn the VIP suite into a cage. Yang, recovering from the initial attack, laughs through bloodied teeth. You think this changes anything? He spits, backing toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Gangnam's glittering skyline. We own these kids' futures, their parents' reputations. One phone call, and every major newspaper in Korea will run stories about how the prestigious Seoul Arts Academy is a den of drug-addicted rich kids. His eyes narrow. How long before they discover your daughter's involvement? Minji's response is cut short by the sound of police sirens approaching the building. Yang's smile widens. Right on schedule. My friends in the force are very prompt. But there's something in Minji's unchanging expression that makes Yang's confidence waver. The sirens are getting louder, but they don't sound quite right. Their pattern is wrong for standard police response. Detective Kang Hee-soon bursts through the main door, followed by officers wearing the distinctive black uniforms of the Special Investigations Unit. Unlike the corrupt local police Yang expected, these are federal agents who've been building a case against the Dragon Phoenix for months. Yang Jin-woo, Hee-soon announces, her badge glinting under the luxury room's lights. You're under arrest for human trafficking, drug distribution, and the murder of federal agent Lee Sun-hwa. The name hits Ji-eun like a physical blow. Lee Sun-hwa, her mother. She looks at Minji, understanding dawning in her eyes. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a carefully orchestrated trap years in the making. The technical difficulties with the security cameras didn't just hide Minji's entrance. They were recording everything, creating irrefutable evidence of the Dragon Phoenix's operations. Yang's composure finally breaks. You can't touch me, he snarls, pulling out a second gun from an ankle holster. I have judges, politicians, police chiefs. His words end in a grunt as Minji closes the distance between them with impossible speed. The fight that follows is brief, but brutal. Yang might be a criminal mastermind, but Minji is something else entirely, a weapon forged in shadows and tempered by love. As Yang lies unconscious and federal agents secure the scene, Ji-eun notices something odd about the businessman's expensive watch. She picks it up from where it fell during the chaos, examining it closely. Dad, she calls out, her voice steady despite everything that's happened. Look at this. The watch's face slides open, revealing a hidden compartment containing a USB drive. Detective Kang takes the drive, her expression grim. The final piece, she says. Your mother died protecting evidence of corruption at the highest levels. Yang thought he destroyed it all in Busan, but she managed to hide this. She looks at Minji. You've been planning this since the day she died, haven't you? Becoming legitimate, building your security company, waiting for Yang to get confident enough to start recruiting at prestigious schools. Minji helps Ji-eun to her feet, checking her for injuries with gentle hands that minutes ago dealt out ruthless violence. Your mother believed that fighting darkness sometimes requires walking in shadows, he tells her softly. But she also believed in justice, in protecting those who can't protect themselves. He turns to Detective Kang. The drive contains everything. Names, accounts, operations, the entire network. As federal agents lead away Yang and his accomplices, including a shell-shocked Tai-sung, Minji notices Ji-eun staring at her reflection in the window. She looks different somehow, stronger, more resolved. I want to learn, she says suddenly. Everything you can teach me. Not just self-defense, but how to fight back, how to protect others. The words could have worried him, but Minji sees in her eyes not a desire for revenge, but her mother's determination to stand against darkness. The aftermath of the Golden Dragon raid unfolds like ripples in a poisoned pond. Detective Kang's team works efficiently, processing the scene, while news vans gather outside like vultures drawn to chaos. Minji watches from the shadows as privileged students are escorted out in handcuffs, their designer uniforms and practiced arrogance stripped away by reality. But something about the scene bothers him. It's too clean, too perfect. Years of survival in Seoul's underworld have taught him that when things look simple, you're missing something deadly. His instincts prove correct when his phone vibrates with an encrypted message from Master Chang. The snake has two heads. Yang was a puppet. Real master is moving. Get out. Before Minji can react, the building's power grid suddenly fails, plunging the entire block into darkness. Emergency lights flicker weakly as shadows move with purpose through the stairwells. These aren't Yang's thugs. Their movements are too precise, too military. Detective Kang recognizes the threat immediately. "Federal agents, defensive positions," she shouts, but her voice is drowned out by the sudden burst of automatic weapons fire. The new attackers are using military-grade weapons with sound suppressors, their night vision equipment giving them a devastating advantage. 2 federal agents go down before they can draw their weapons. Minji grabs Ji-eun and pulls her behind an overturned marble table, his body shielding her from flying debris. "Remember the emergency protocols we practiced?" he whispers. She nods, finally understanding why their weekend camping trips always included memorizing escape routes and meeting points. "Service elevator shaft down to B3, red container in storage unit 23, she recites. He presses a key into her hand. "Go, now." Through her earpiece, Detective Kang receives a chilling update. Similar attacks are happening simultaneously at other locations across Seoul. Every person connected to Yang's arrest is being systematically targeted. This isn't just a rescue attempt, it's a cleanup operation. She watches in professional admiration as Minji moves through the darkness, his fighting style shifting to match the new threat. These attackers might have military training, but Minji fights like a force of nature. In the service corridor, Ji-eun encounters 2 attackers in full tactical gear. Instead of freezing, she channels everything her father taught her, using her smaller size and knowledge of the building's layout to her advantage. A fire extinguisher becomes a smokescreen, buying her precious seconds to reach the elevator shaft. Behind her, she hears the distinctive sound of hand-to-hand combat, Minji ensuring no one follows her. Back in the VIP suite, Yang regains consciousness to find himself cuffed to a support pillar. He starts laughing, the sound carrying an edge of hysteria. "You really think this was about drugs and privileged kids?" he taunts as Minji efficiently disarms another attacker. The Dragon Phoenix was just a test run. Imagine it scaled up, controlling the next generation of Korea's elite. Politicians, business leaders, judges, all compromised before they even take power. Detective Kang, reloading behind a fallen bookshelf, pieces it together. "The USB drive," she says. "It's not just about current corruption. It's their future operations." She turns to Minji. "Your security company doesn't just protect assets. You've been mapping their entire network, haven't you? Using legitimate contracts to gather intelligence on every major player in Korea." A new figure emerges from the shadows, a tall woman in an expensive business suit, her silver hair immaculate despite the chaos. "Impressive work, Ghost," she says in accented Korean. Minji's eyes narrow in recognition. "Madame Cho," he responds. The woman who disappeared after Busan, leaving a trail of dead federal agents, including Ji-eun's mother, the true head of the snake. "You've disrupted years of careful planning," Madame Cho continues, her tone almost admiring. "Using your own daughter as bait, knowing Yang couldn't resist recreating his triumph from Busan, turning our recruitment of privileged children against us." She sighs. "But did you really think we wouldn't have contingencies? Right now, similar scenes are playing out across Seoul. Every piece of evidence, every witness, every loose end, all being tied up permanently." Minji's response is cut short by an explosion from below. The building's support structure has been rigged to collapse. Madame Cho smiles. "Your choice, Ghost. Save your daughter, or save the evidence that could bring down our entire organization. You have 3 minutes before this building is reduced to rubble." She steps back into the shadows as more armed figures rappel in through the broken windows. Detective Kang meets Minji's eyes across the chaos. "Go," she says, understanding in her voice. "Ji-eun is what matters." Her mother would say the same. But Minji doesn't move toward the exit. Instead, he removes a hidden panel in his tactical vest, revealing a second USB drive. "My security company backs up everything," he says with the ghost of a smile. Yang's drive was a decoy. The real evidence was uploaded the moment he took the bait. The building shudders as another explosion rocks its foundation. Min-ji knows he has seconds to make a choice that will echo through years to come. In the distance, he hears the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors, Madame Cho's escape route. Sometimes he realizes being a father means teaching your child that there are things worth fighting for, even in the darkest moments. The Golden Dragon building groans like a dying beast as its support structures fail one by one. Min-ji moves with practiced efficiency, dispatching 2 more of Madame Cho's tactical team members while mentally calculating trajectories. The helicopter's sound grows louder. It's landing on the building's helipad 2 floors above. Through the chaos, he notices Yang being quietly escorted away by one of the tactical team members. Their movement pattern is different from the others, more precise, almost familiar. Detective Kang provides covering fire as Min-ji makes his way to the emergency stairwell. "The evidence is secure," she shouts over the gunfire. "But we're losing our backup teams on the ground. Someone's jamming all communications." A sudden explosion rocks the floor below them, and Min-ji realizes Madame Cho isn't just demolishing the building. She's creating a specific collapse pattern, herding survivors toward predetermined killing zones. In the basement parking structure, Ji-eun reaches storage unit 23, her hand steady as she opens the red container. Inside, she finds exactly what Min-ji prepared: a tactical vest her size, a secure satellite phone, and a laptop with a familiar interface, Park Securities' proprietary software. The screen displays a building schematic with multiple blinking dots representing tracked devices. One is moving rapidly toward the helipad, Madame Cho, wearing the watch they recovered earlier. Another dot shows her father's position, and a third. Ji-eun's eyes widen. The third signal is moving in a pattern she recognizes from her mother's case files. Min-ji reaches the helipad level, his movements masked by the helicopter's deafening rotor wash. Through the swirling air, he sees Madame Cho boarding the helicopter, her silver hair whipping in the wind. The tactical team member escorting Yang removes their helmet, revealing a face Min-ji hasn't seen in 12 years. Agent Kim Soo-jin, Ji-eun's mother's former partner, long presumed dead after Busan. "She's not just cleaning up evidence," Agent Kim shouts over the noise, keeping her weapon trained on Yang. The Dragon Phoenix was Phase 1. They've been placing sleeper agents in every major institution in Korea. Today was supposed to be their activation signal. Yang's fearful expression confirms the truth. The recruitment of privileged students wasn't just about control. It was about creating a generation of compromised leaders loyal to Madame Cho's organization. The building shudders again, more violently this time. Min-ji's earpiece crackles with Ji-eun's voice. "Dad, Mom's partner is alive. She's been deep undercover in Cho's organization since Busan. The watch wasn't just evidence, it's broadcasting their entire network's activation codes." The revelation hits Min-ji just as Madame Cho realizes her own watch is missing, replaced by the one they recovered earlier. "Impressive to the end, Ghost," Madame Cho calls out, her composed facade cracking slightly. "But you forget. I ordered the hit on Ji-eun's mother. I've planned for every contingency." She pulls out a detonator. This building isn't the only one rigged to fall. Right now, explosives are planted in 3 other locations, including your daughter's precious art academy. Survival requires sacrifice. That was always your weakness. Min-ji processes this new information with cold efficiency. The helicopter pilot, noticing the standoff, keeps the engines running but remains grounded. Agent Kim maintains her position, using Yang as a human shield. The building groans again and Min-ji feels the helipad beginning to tilt. They have minutes at most before the entire structure comes down. Through his earpiece, he hears Detective Kang coordinating with Ji-eun. "The building's network is still active. Your father's security systems have access, we can override." The rest is lost in static as another explosion rocks the building. But Min-ji understands the plan. Ji-eun has access to Park Securities systems which are integrated into every building they protect, including the Art Academy. "You're right about sacrifice," Min-ji tells Madame Cho, his voice carrying clearly despite the chaos. "But wrong about weakness." He moves with sudden explosive speed, not toward Cho but toward the helicopter. The pilot, one of Cho's loyal soldiers, reaches for a weapon but isn't fast enough. Min-ji takes control of the aircraft in seconds, the skills from his former life returning like muscle memory. Madame Cho's finger tightens on the detonator, but nothing happens. On the laptop in the basement, Ji-eun has already isolated and blocked the detonation frequencies using her father's security network. Agent Kim takes advantage of the moment to subdue Yang, who's finally realizing he was never more than a disposable pawn in a much larger game. "Your organization is finished," Min-ji tells Cho as he keeps the helicopter steady despite the building's increasing instability. "The activation codes are being broadcast to every intelligence agency in Korea. Your sleeper agents are being rounded up as we speak." He sees a flash of something almost like respect cross Cho's face before she makes her move. A hidden blade aimed at his throat. The fight that follows is brutal and swift, made more deadly by the tilting helipad and the helicopter's still spinning rotors. Cho fights with the desperate precision of someone who has orchestrated deaths from boardrooms, but isn't afraid to get her hands bloody. But Min-ji has something she doesn't, a reason to survive that goes beyond power and control. The helicopter's rotor wash creates a deadly vortex of debris as Min-ji and Madame Cho battle across the disintegrating helipad. Each strike and counterstrike carries decades of underground history. Cho's blade-weaving patterns taught in secret dojos, Min-ji's responses echoing techniques learned in shadow wars. The building continues its gradual collapse beneath them, the helipad's surface tilting more severely with each passing second. Agent Kim secures Yang with reinforced restraints, her movements displaying the same military precision that helped her maintain her cover for 12 years. "The mansion in Pyeongchang-dong," she shouts over the chaos. "That's their backup command center. Everything we need to dismantle their entire operation is there." The information makes Madame Cho's attacks become more desperate, more lethal. She knows that once her organization's foundation is exposed, decades of carefully cultivated power will crumble. In the basement, Ji-eun works frantically at the laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she helps Detective Kang coordinate the citywide response. The building's security systems reveal more of Madame Cho's plan: systematic attacks on key infrastructure, designed to create enough chaos to activate their sleeper agents under cover of emergency protocols. But with access to her father's network, Ji-eun is able to isolate and neutralize each threat, her mother's strategic instincts combining with her father's technical training. "Southeast stairwell is still stable," she radios to Detective Kang. "You have 90 seconds before that changes." Through the security feeds, she watches federal agents evacuating the building, carrying hard drives and documents that will help dismantle the Dragon Phoenix's operations. Her father's voice crackles through the comm. "Ji-eun, get out now. Building's going critical." But she has one more task to complete. On the helipad, Min-ji sees a subtle shift in Madame Cho's fighting style. She's no longer trying to win, she's creating an opening. The helicopter pilot, seemingly unconscious from Min-ji's earlier attack, is actually waiting for a signal. Agent Kim notices too late. "The pilot," she warns, but the man is already moving, a dead man's switch visible in his hand. One last insurance policy. The explosion that follows tears through the helicopter's fuel tank, sending burning debris across the helipad. Min-ji rolls clear, but the surface is now catastrophically unstable. Madame Cho uses the chaos to make her move, not toward an escape route, but toward a specific section of the building's edge. Min-ji realizes her true plan. There's a secondary extraction point hidden in the architectural plans. She's heading for the maintenance shaft. Ji-eun's voice cuts through the comm static. "Dad, it connects to the old subway tunnels. She has a whole escape network down there." Even as the building shudders around her, Ji-eun refuses to leave until she's transferred all the security data to federal servers. Her mother died protecting evidence. She won't let that sacrifice be in vain. Detective Kang and her team engaged Cho's remaining tactical units on the lower floors, the battle becoming more desperate as the building continues to fall apart. Through her earpiece, she coordinates with other federal units converging on the Pyeongchang-dong mansion. "Be advised, probable hostile force heavily armed. They'll be expecting us now." Min-ji pursues Madame Cho through the maintenance access, their fight continuing in the confined space. She's smaller, more agile, but he has the advantage of knowing every detail of the building's construction. Park Securities installed all the security systems after all. Each level they descend brings them closer to the old tunnels, where Min-ji knows Cho has more forces waiting. Your daughter fights like her mother, Cho taunts as they grapple in the dimly lit shaft. Same determination, same weakness for lost causes. She strikes at Min-ji's injured side where her blade found purchase earlier. I ordered the hit in Busan because Sun-hwa wouldn't accept the new reality. Some people can't adapt. They cling to outdated ideas of justice, of right and wrong. Their fight carries them into the tunnel system where emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. Water drips from ancient concrete, and the rumble of the collapsing building above sends vibrations through the ground. Min-ji can hear Ji-eun in his earpiece coordinating with Detective Kang's team as they secure multiple escape routes. His daughter, he realizes, has inherited the best of both her parents, her mother's sense of justice and his tactical mind. You're wrong about weakness, Min-ji responds, blocking a strike that would have severed his carotid artery. Family isn't weakness. It's why we fight. He catches a glimpse of something in Cho's eyes. Not fear, but perhaps recognition. She sees in him what she could have been, if she'd chosen loyalty over power, protection over control. The tunnel shakes more violently as the Golden Dragon building begins its final collapse above them. Cho makes one last desperate attack, drawing a second hidden blade. But Min-ji has been waiting for this moment, reading her desperation like a book. The fight ends with brutal efficiency, not with a killing blow, but with the same precise strike he used to protect Ji-eun at the academy. Some cycles of violence need to be broken. The underground tunnel network trembles as the Golden Dragon building collapses above. Decades-old concrete groaning under the stress. Min-ji secures an unconscious Madame Cho with reinforced restraints, but his instincts scream that something isn't right. She gave up too easily, too perfectly. In the dim emergency lighting, he notices subtle marks on the tunnel walls, recent tool marks disguised to look old. Ji-eun, get me a thermal scan of the tunnel system, he commands through his comm. Static is his only reply. The building's collapse has finally severed their connection. He's alone in the darkness with his captive, surrounded by a maze of tunnels that could hide any number of threats. The water level around his feet is rising slowly. Another part of Cho's plan, he realizes. She's flooding the escape routes. Above ground, Ji-eun emerges from the building's emergency exit just moments before it completely collapses. Detective Kang's team has secured the perimeter, and Agent Kim maintains a vice-like grip on Yang, who watches his empire literally crumble before his eyes. But Ji-eun's focus is entirely on her laptop, trying desperately to re-establish connection with her father's comm system. The tunnels are part of an old flood control network, Agent Kim explains, her years of undercover work providing crucial intelligence. Cho's organization modified them, added security systems and emergency protocols. They can flood specific sections remotely. She turns to Yang, her expression hard. Where's the control center? The real one, not the mansion decoy. Yang's arrogant facade finally cracks. You don't understand, he says, real fear in his voice. Cho planned for everything. The flooding isn't just about escape, it's about erasure. She'd rather drown everyone involved than risk exposure. Ji-eun's blood runs cold as she realizes the implications. Her father is trapped underground with a woman who's willing to die to protect her secrets. In the tunnels, Min-ji navigates the labyrinth with measured steps, dragging Cho with him. The water is now knee-deep and rising faster. His tactical training kicks in, counting steps, memorizing turns, noting airflow patterns. Behind him, Cho starts laughing softly. 12 years, she says, watching your daughter grow up, planning every detail. Did you really think I wouldn't have agents in your own security company? The revelation hits just as emergency bulkheads begin slamming shut throughout the tunnel system. Activated not by Cho's people, but by someone with access to Park Securities protocols. Min-ji's own security systems, turned against him by a traitor in his organization. The sound of rushing water grows louder as powerful pumps activate, forcing water from the Han River into the tunnel network. Above ground, Ji-eun's fingers fly across her keyboard, trying to override the security protocols. But someone is actively fighting her attempts, changing access codes and rerouting commands. The traitor's good, she mutters, her mother's determination showing in her clenched jaw. But not good enough. Years of watching her father work, of asking questions about his security systems, have prepared her for this moment. Detective Kang coordinates with city authorities to shut down water flow to the area, but it's too late. The tunnel system is already accessing emergency reservoirs. Agent Kim recognizes the strategy from her years undercover. This was always their fallback, she explains. If exposed, flood everything. The water damage destroys evidence, bodies are swept into the Han River, and the flooding provides cover for their sleeper agents to evacuate the city. In the rapidly flooding tunnel, Min-ji realizes he's being herded toward a specific location. The rising water, the sealed bulkheads, it's all pushing him toward what appears to be a dead end. But appearance, he knows, is just another form of deception. He runs his hands along the wall, finding nearly invisible seams, a hidden door to Cho's real command center. Your daughter is talented, Cho remarks as the water reaches their chests. She fights the darkness so hard, just like her mother. But darkness always wins in the end. Ask yourself, how many of your own people has she had to hurt to get this far? How much of her soul has she sacrificed already? The words are meant to disturb him, but Min-ji sees them for what they are, a distraction from the real threat. The hidden door slides open silently, revealing a high-tech command center. Screens show camera feeds from across Seoul, including live footage of Ji-eun working frantically at her laptop. Min-ji's eyes narrow as he spots a familiar face among Cho's technical team. Park Securities' head of cybersecurity, now holding a gun trained steadily at his head. Family isn't weakness, the man says, echoing Min-ji's earlier words mockingly. But loyalty can be bought. Your daughter's safety, guaranteed. All it took was looking the other way sometimes, helping Cho's people bypass certain security measures. He gestures to a central console. The flooding can still be stopped. Just give us access to your company's main servers, let us clean up our tracks, and everyone lives. The water continues to rise in the tunnels behind them as Min-ji calculates his options. The command center is sealed and waterproof, but he can hear the bulkheads straining under the increasing pressure. His betrayer thinks he's won, but there's one thing he hasn't considered. Min-ji didn't survive this long by having only one way out of a trap. The command center's screens bathe the room in a cold blue glow, displaying the chaos unfolding across Seoul. Min-ji stands perfectly still, water dripping from his clothes, as his former head of cybersecurity keeps the gun trained on him. Behind them, Madame Cho watches with calculated interest, her silver hair still immaculate despite everything. The betrayal doesn't surprise Min-ji. In his former life, he learned that loyalty is like a currency, constantly being revalued. The servers, Mr. Park, the traitor demands, using Min-ji's public name with mocking formality. Every second you delay, more water fills those tunnels. Your daughter is still up there, fighting so hard to save you. Would you let her become an orphan twice? On the screens, they can see Ji-eun working frantically, her face illuminated by her laptop's glow as she battles against their cyber attacks. But Min-ji sees something in the footage that others miss, a slight smile playing at the corners of Ji-eun's mouth. She's not desperately fighting a losing battle. She's laying a trap. All those hours she spent asking questions about his security systems, practicing with the company's software, weren't just teenage curiosity. Like father, like daughter, they both know the value of playing the long game. Interesting choice of words, Min-ji responds calmly, his eyes never leaving the gun. Becoming an orphan twice. You knew about her mother, about Busan, which means you've been Cho's agent for at least 12 years. The revelation causes a flicker of surprise across the traitor's face. He hadn't expected Min-ji to piece it together so quickly. You helped them track Sun Hua that night, didn't you? Madame Cho laughed softly. He was one of our first successes, a promising young cybersecurity expert with gambling debts and a taste for luxury. So easy to turn, so useful to keep in place. When you started building your security empire, we already had our man perfectly positioned. She moves to one of the control panels, her fingers dancing across the keys. And now he'll help us disappear completely, erasing every trace of our organization from your servers. Above ground, Detective Kang receives urgent updates from her teams across the city. The water level in the tunnel system is reaching critical levels, threatening to overflow into the subway network. But Ji-eun remains focused on her screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard with inherited precision. "Almost there," she mutters. Agent Kim watches the girl work, seeing echoes of her former partner's determination. In the command center, the traitor grows increasingly nervous as warning lights begin flashing across the control panels. "Something's wrong," he says, his gun hand trembling slightly. "The system isn't responding correctly." Min-ji allows himself a small smile. Ji-eun has sprung her trap. All those apparent failed attempts to breach their security were actually laying groundwork, planting code that would activate at precisely this moment. "You forgot something crucial," Min-ji tells him. "When you betrayed us, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed every principle I taught my daughter about protecting others, about standing against people like you." The screens suddenly flicker, and the command center's sophisticated security systems begin to shut down one by one. And she's her mother's daughter too. She never forgives betrayal. Madame Cho's composed facade finally cracks as she realizes what's happening. Ji-eun hasn't just been fighting their cyber attacks. She's been using them as a pathway to infiltrate their own systems. Every attempt they made to breach Park Securities' servers allowed her to trace their connections back to the command center. The hunter became the hunted. The traitor panics, swinging his gun toward the control panel, intending to destroy it before they lose everything. But Min-ji is already moving, his earlier stillness revealed as the coiled patience of a predator. The fight is brief but brutal. A security expert with a gun is still just an amateur against someone who once made violence an art form. The gun clatters to the floor as Min-ji's elbow connects with the traitor's temple, dropping him instantly. Madame Cho reveals her final desperate gambit, pulling out a small device. "Dead man's switch," she announces. The tunnels aren't just rigged to flood. They're wired with enough explosives to collapse half the district. "If I release this button, everything ends. Your daughter, the evidence, all of it." She backs toward an emergency exit only she knows exists. "Sometimes the only way to win is to bring everything down with you." But her eyes widen as she sees Min-ji's expression doesn't change. If anything, he looks almost satisfied. "You still think you're dealing with the ghost of Seoul," he says quietly. "The killer who worked alone. But I'm not that man anymore." He nods toward one of the few screens still functioning, showing a new set of figures entering the tunnel system. "I'm a father who taught his daughter everything he knows, including how to assemble a really good team." Through the command center's walls, they hear the muffled sounds of breaching charges being set. Agent Kim's voice crackles through the emergency speaker system. "Cho, the tunnels are clear. Federal teams have disarmed all explosives. Your sleeper agents are being arrested across the city. It's over." The sound of multiple laser sights activating fills the room as special operations teams breach from all sides, their entry points exactly where Ji-eun's analysis predicted they would be. Special operations teams flood into the command center, their movements precise and coordinated. Madame Cho stands perfectly still, the dead man's switch still firmly in her grip. Even surrounded, she maintains her air of absolute control, the same demeanor that helped her build a criminal empire spanning generations. Min-ji recognizes the look in her eyes. It's the same one he used to see in the mirror during his darkest days. "Impressive coordination," she says, nodding toward the tactical teams securing the room. "But you've forgotten something crucial about power. It's not just about having the right weapons or the best intelligence." She gestures to one of the still-functioning screens showing live feeds from across Seoul. "It's about having the right people in the right places." Several of the special operations team members suddenly shift their weapons, aiming at their own teammates. The revelation hits hard. Cho's infiltration runs deeper than anyone imagined. Even the elite units sent to arrest her have been compromised. The command center erupts into chaos as loyal officers engage with the sleeper agents, the confined space making every shot dangerous. Min-ji moves with fluid precision, disarming the nearest turncoat while shouting into his comm, "Ji-eun, initiate protocol ghost." Above ground, Ji-eun's fingers fly across her keyboard one final time. All those hours studying her father's security systems, asking questions about contingency plans, weren't just about learning the family business. They were preparation for this moment. "Protocol Ghost activated," she announces, her voice steady. Throughout the command center, every screen simultaneously displays the same message. Biometric lockdown initiated. Madame Cho's eyes widen as she realizes what's happening. Park Securities systems aren't just about physical security. They're about information control. Every compromised officer's identity is being broadcast to federal databases in real time, their access codes revoked, their communications monitored. The very network she tried to use against them becomes her undoing. "Your mother would be proud," Agent Kim tells Ji-eun as they watch the operation unfold on her laptop. "She always said the best way to fight corruption was to shine light in the darkest places." Around them, federal teams are already moving to arrest identified sleeper agents across the city, using the data Ji-eun's program has uncovered. In the command center, the fighting intensifies. Min-ji moves like a force of nature, his years of experience evident in every precise strike. But even he knows they're running out of time. The water level in the tunnels continues to rise and Cho still holds the dead man's switch. One wrong move, one moment of desperation, and everything could literally come crashing down. "You taught me something valuable," Min-ji tells Cho as they face each other in the chaos. "In Busan, when you ordered the hit on Sunhwa, you showed me that the past never really dies. It just waits for the right moment to surface." He takes a calculated step forward. "But you taught Ji-eun something too, though you didn't mean to. You taught her that some fights are worth any cost." Suddenly, the command center's emergency lights shift from red to blue. Through the speakers, Ji-eun's voice rings clear. "Dad, Agent Kim found the master control panel. We're overriding the flood system now." The water in the tunnels begins to recede, and Cho's last leverage starts to slip away. But Min-ji sees something in her expression that others might miss. A hint of satisfaction that seems out of place for someone about to lose everything. "The thing about ghosts," Cho says quietly, her finger tensing on the dead man's switch, "is that they can never truly rest. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering which of your trusted allies might be another sleeper agent, wondering if your daughter is truly safe." She smiles, a cold expression that doesn't reach her eyes. "Maybe that's the real victory, not destroying you but making you forever paranoid, forever alone." Min-ji's response is cut short by a sudden power surge that rocks the command center. Emergency barriers begin slamming shut, separating friend from foe. Through his comm, he hears Ji-eun's urgent voice. "Dad, we found something in the code. There's a secondary trigger system. The dead man's switch is a fake. The real explosives are—" The revelation comes a second too late. Cho drops the switch carelessly, pulling out a small pendant instead, identical to the one Min-ji's daughter wears, a gift from her mother years ago. "Sunhwa had good taste in jewelry," she says, twisting the pendant's base. "But I have better taste in hiding places for detonators." The explosion that follows isn't the massive chain reaction they expected. Instead, it's focused and precise, targeting specific support structures in the tunnel system. Min-ji realizes Cho's true plan wasn't to destroy everything, but to create exactly the right amount of chaos to cover her escape. As water begins rushing back into the tunnels, he makes a choice that will define not just his future, but his daughter's as well. The command center transforms into a battlefield of shadow and water, as Cho's precisely placed explosions trigger a cascade of structural failures. Min-ji moves with lethal focus, knowing he has seconds to make a decision that will echo through years to come. The pendant in Cho's hand, so similar to the one Ji-eun wears, becomes the center of his world, not because of its destructive power, but because of what it represents, the intersection of past and present, of revenge and protection. "Dad, the tunnel's integrity is failing," Ji-eun's voice crackles through his comm. "You have maybe 2 minutes before total collapse." She's running calculations on her laptop, trying to find a safe extraction route, but they both know the numbers don't lie. The water is rising too fast, the structural damage too severe. Through the command center's remaining screens, Min-ji can see his daughter's face set with the same determination her mother showed in Busan. Madame Cho backs toward a hidden exit panel, her silver hair now disheveled, but her composure intact. "You have a choice, Ghost," she says, her voice carrying over the sound of rushing water. "Chase me, get your revenge, maybe even catch me, but lose your chance to save those loyal agents trapped in the tunnels. Or save them, and live with the knowledge that I'm still out there, still holding power over your daughter's future." She smiles, knowing the weight of the decision she's forcing upon him. Above ground, Detective Kang coordinates rescue teams while Agent Kim works with Ji-eun to map the tunnel system's failing points. The structural damage is deliberate, Ji-eun realizes, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She's not just escaping, she's erasing evidence. The water will destroy any remaining proof of her organization's activities. She pauses, noticing a pattern in the damage reports. Wait, these collapse points, they're familiar. In the command center, Min-ji watches as loyal special operations team members struggle to secure their traitorous former companions while fighting against the rising water. The betrayal cuts deep. These sleeper agents weren't just corrupted officials, but elite operators who'd served their country for years. Cho's infiltration was masterful, patient, spanning generations. "Your daughter's pendant," Cho continues, holding up her own version. "Did you never wonder why Sunhwa insisted she always wear it? Why she made you promise to protect it along with the girl?" The revelation hits Min-ji like a physical blow. The pendant wasn't just jewelry, it was insurance, a key to something Sunhwa had hidden years ago. "She was smarter than I gave her credit for," Cho admits, hiding the real evidence where no one would think to look. Ji-eun's voice suddenly cuts through the chaos with urgent clarity. "Dad, Mom's old case files. The tunnel collapse pattern matches a location she investigated right before Busan. There's something hidden in these tunnels, something she found 12 years ago. That's the real reason they killed her." The pieces fall into place in Min-ji's mind. Sunhwa's insistence about the pendant, Cho's decades-long patience, the elaborate scheme to control the next generation of Korea's elite. It was all connected to whatever evidence remained hidden in these flooding tunnels. 3 different elite units are trapped in the North Tunnel section, Agent Kim reports through the comm. Water's rising fast. They've maybe 90 seconds before they're cut off completely. The choice becomes crystal clear. Pursue Cho and uncover the truth about Sunhwa's death, or save the lives of good men and women who trusted him with their safety. But Min-ji sees something in Cho's stance that others might miss. A slight tension, a readiness that suggests she's not as confident as she appears. "You're right about choices," he tells her, his voice steady despite the chaos. "But wrong about the options." He taps his comm twice, activating a private channel to Ji-eun. "Remember what your mother taught you about misdirection?" Above ground, Ji-eun's eyes widen as she understands her father's message. The pendant she wears isn't just a key, it's a beacon. Sunhwa didn't just hide evidence. She created a trail that only her daughter could follow. All those years of Min-ji insisting Ji-eun learn about security systems, about pattern recognition, weren't just about the family business. They were preparation for this moment. "The tunnels are going to collapse anyway," Ji-eun announces, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with inherited precision. "So let's control how they fall." She activates a series of commands, using her father's security systems in ways their designers never imagined. The water flow shifts, creating paths of least resistance that will guide the collapse. It's not about stopping the destruction, it's about directing it. In the command center, Min-ji sees his daughter's plan unfold on the remaining screens. She's not just saving the trapped agents, she's forcing Cho's escape route to merge with their evacuation path. The woman who orchestrated decades of corruption and violence is about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous ghost isn't the one you can see, but the legacy they leave behind. The tunnel system transforms into a maze of calculated destruction as Ji-eun's commands redirect the water flow. Madame Cho realizes too late that her escape route is being systematically sealed, the collapsing passages forcing her toward a converging point with the evacuating agents. Her composed facade finally cracks as she recognizes the elegant brutality of the trap. It's exactly the kind of strategy Sunhwa would have designed. In the command center, Min-ji moves with renewed purpose. "The pendant isn't just a key," he says, advancing on Cho as water cascades through widening cracks in the walls. "It's a beacon, leading to whatever Sunhwa found. That's why you needed Ji-eun alive all these years, to maintain access to her pendant's signal." The revelation makes Cho's eyes narrow. She hadn't expected him to piece it together so quickly. Above ground, Ji-eun's fingers fly across her keyboard with inherited precision. "Mom's old case files mentioned a secured server," she tells Agent Kim, who watches in growing appreciation. "The kind that needs constant biometric verification to maintain access. She must have locked away evidence so devastating that even her death wouldn't expose it, unless someone had both pendants to complete the authentication." Detective Kang coordinates with rescue teams as the first group of trapped agents emerges from a service shaft. "The water's following predicted paths," she reports. "Your daughter's calculations are perfect." But Min-ji barely registers the words, his focus entirely on Cho as she backs toward her rapidly diminishing escape options. The woman who ordered his wife's death is finally running out of contingency plans. 12 years of planning, Cho says, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Infiltrating every level of society, preparing the next generation to serve us. Your wife's evidence could have destroyed everything, but she made it worthless without her daughter's biometric data. So we waited, patience becoming our greatest weapon." She laughs bitterly. "Do you know how hard it was not to kill that girl? To watch her grow up, knowing she was the key to our destruction?" The command center's remaining screens show the water level rising rapidly in sealed sections while creating clear paths in others. Ji-eun's voice comes through the comm with urgent clarity. "Dad, I found it. Mom's hidden server. It's in a maintenance room near your position. Both pendants need to be within range for full access." She pauses, and Min-ji can hear the weight of responsibility in her next words. But the structural integrity won't hold much longer. Maybe 3 minutes before total collapse. Cho makes her move with desperate precision, drawing a hidden blade. "Your daughter is clever," she admits, slashing at Min-ji with practiced skill. "But she forgets. I trained with the same masters you did, before I chose to rule from boardrooms instead of back alleys." The fight that follows is brutally elegant. 2 experts in lethal arts battling amid rising water and falling debris. Meanwhile, Ji-eun works frantically to maintain the delicate balance of water pressure and structural collapse. "The pending data transfer is massive," she reports. "Military contracts, political bribes, decades of blackmail material. Mom found everything." Agent Kim watches the young woman work, seeing echoes of her former partner's determination. "She knew they'd kill her," Ji-eun continues, her voice catching. "So she made sure the truth would come from me." In the flooding command center, Min-ji finally gains the upper hand. A precise strike sends Cho's blade spinning away, followed by a combination that leaves her stunned against a failing wall. The pendant hangs between them, its secret now fully revealed. But before he can grab it, Cho plays her final card. "Your daughter has her mother's heart," she gasps, blood trickling from her lip. "That same weakness for justice, for protecting others. How long before she follows her mother's path? How many more ghosts will your family create?" She pulls out one last hidden device, not a weapon, but a phone displaying a live feed. "My organization doesn't just control the present, we own the future. Every student at that arts academy, their families are already compromised, including Ji-eun's closest friends." The threat hangs heavy in the water-filled air. Even now, with her empire crumbling, Cho maintains the power to destroy lives. Min-ji knows she's trying to force another choice, the pendant or his daughter's future. The evidence that could dismantle decades of corruption, or the chance to protect Ji-eun from following her mother's dangerous path. But Cho has made a crucial mistake. She assumed Min-ji's years of living a legitimate life had softened him, made him forget the lessons learned in Shadow Wars. As the water rises and the tunnels groan with impending collapse, he shows her just how wrong she is. Sometimes the most dangerous ghost isn't the one seeking revenge, but the one protecting what matters most. The command center groans under the increasing pressure of water and structural failure. Min-ji moves with the fluid grace of someone who has made peace with his decision. "You're right about one thing," he tells Cho, his voice carrying over the chaos. "My daughter does have her mother's heart. But you forgot something crucial. She has my training too." Before Cho can process his meaning, Min-ji's hand shoots out, ripping the pendant from her grasp with lethal precision. Above ground, Ji-eun's eyes widen as new data floods her screen. "The pendants are in range," she announces to Agent Kim. "Mom's server is unlocking, but—" She trails off, her fingers flying across the keyboard with increasing urgency. There's something else. A secondary protocol Mom built into the system. The revelation hits her just as the first files begin transferring. Sun Hua hadn't just hidden evidence. She'd created a digital dead man switch that would activate only when both pendants came together. In the tunnels, Cho's phone suddenly lights up with urgent notifications. Across Seoul, encrypted files are unlocking themselves, flooding secure networks with decades of carefully gathered evidence. Bank transfers, surveillance footage, compromising photographs, everything Sun Hua had collected about the organization's hold over Korea's elite. But it's not just exposing past crimes, it's revealing future plans, including detailed files on every student at the Arts Academy. "You see," Min-ji explains as understanding dawns in Cho's eyes, "Sun Hua knew someone would try to use the students as leverage, so she made sure the truth would protect them instead." The phone in Cho's hand becomes worthless as evidence of her organization's influence over the students' families becomes public knowledge. You can't blackmail someone with information everyone already knows. Ji-eun watches in awe as her mother's final gambit unfolds. "She turned their own network against them," she tells Detective Kang, who's coordinating arrests across the city based on the flooding data. "Every connection they built, every secret they kept, it's all becoming evidence against them." The Art Academy students and their families aren't victims anymore. They're witnesses protected by the very publicity Cho tried to use as a weapon. The tunnels shake more violently as the final phase of collapse approaches. Water now reaches Min-ji's chest, but his focus remains absolute. Cho makes one last desperate attack, drawing a hidden blade from her sleeve. The fight that follows is brutal but brief, a clash between someone fighting for power and someone fighting for legacy. Min-ji moves like his old namesake, a ghost dealing justice in the shadows, but his strikes aren't meant to kill. Sometimes living with defeat is a harsher punishment than death. "Agent Kim," Ji-eun's voice carries urgent authority through the comm system. "The maintenance room. Mom left something there, something physical. The server was just part of it." The former undercover agent immediately understands. Digital evidence can be questioned, but physical proof, documents, photographs are, she reports. Military contracts, political bribes, decades of blackmail material. Mom found everything. Agent Kim watches the young woman work, seeing echoes of her former partner's determination. "She knew they'd kill her," Ji-eun continues, her voice catching. "So she made sure the truth would come from me." In the flooding command center, Min-ji finally gains the upper hand. A precise strike sends Cho's blade spinning away, followed by a combination that leaves her stunned against a failing wall. The pendant hangs between them, its secret now fully revealed. But before he can grab it, Cho plays her final card. "Your daughter has her mother's heart," she gasps, blood trickling from her lip. "That same weakness for justice, for protecting others. How long before she follows her mother's path? How many more ghosts will your family create?" She pulls out one last hidden device, not a weapon, but a phone displaying a live feed. "My organization doesn't just control the present, we own the future. Every student at that Arts Academy, their families are already compromised, including Ji-eun's closest friends." The threat hangs heavy in the water-filled air. Even now, with her empire crumbling, Cho maintains the power to destroy lives. Min-ji knows she's trying to force another choice, the pendant or his daughter's future. The evidence that could dismantle decades of corruption, or the chance to protect Ji-eun from following her mother's dangerous path. But Cho has made a crucial mistake. She assumed Minji's years of living a legitimate life had softened him, made him forget the lessons learned in shadow wars. As the water rises and the tunnels groan with impending collapse, he shows her just how wrong she is. Sometimes the most dangerous ghost isn't the one seeking revenge, but the one protecting what matters most. The command center groans under the increasing pressure of water and structural failure. Min-ji moves with the fluid grace of someone who has made peace with his decision. "You're right about one thing," he tells Cho, his voice carrying over the chaos. "My daughter does have her mother's heart. But you forgot something crucial. She has my training too." Before Cho can process his meaning, Min-ji's hand shoots out, ripping the pendant from her grasp with lethal precision. Above ground, Ji-eun's eyes widen as new data floods her screen. "The pendants are in range," she announces to Agent Kim. "Mom's server is unlocking, but—" She trails off, her fingers flying across the keyboard with increasing urgency. There's something else. A secondary protocol Mom built into the system. The revelation hits her just as the first files begin transferring. Sun Hwa hadn't just hidden evidence. She'd created a digital dead man's switch that would activate only when both pendants came together. In the tunnels, Cho's phone suddenly lights up with urgent notifications. Across Seoul, encrypted files are unlocking themselves, flooding secure networks with decades of carefully gathered evidence. Bank transfers, surveillance footage, compromising photographs, everything Sun Hwa had collected about the organization's hold over Korea's elite. But it's not just exposing past crimes, it's revealing future plans, including detailed files on every student at the Arts Academy. "You see," Min-ji explains as understanding dawns in Cho's eyes, "Sun Hwa knew someone would try to use the students as leverage, so she made sure the truth would protect them instead." The phone in Cho's hand becomes worthless, as evidence of her organization's influence over the students' families becomes public knowledge. You can't blackmail someone with information everyone already knows. Ji-eun watches in awe as her mother's final gambit unfolds. "She turned their own network against them," she tells Detective Kang, who's coordinating arrests across the city based on the flooding data. "Every connection they built, every secret they kept, it's all becoming evidence against them. The Art Academy students and their families aren't victims anymore. They're witnesses protected by the very publicity Cho tried to use as a weapon." The tunnels shake more violently as the final phase of collapse approaches. Water now reaches Min-ji's chest, but his focus remains absolute. Cho makes one last desperate attack, drawing a hidden blade from her sleeve. The fight that follows is brutal, but brief. A clash between someone fighting for power and someone fighting for legacy. Min-ji moves like his old namesake, a ghost dealing justice in the shadows, but his strikes aren't meant to kill. Sometimes living with defeat is a harsher punishment than death. "Agent Kim," Ji-eun's voice carries urgent authority through the comm system. "The maintenance room. Mom left something there, something physical. The server was just part of it." The former undercover agent immediately understands. Digital evidence can be questioned, but physical proof, documents, photographs, recordings, that's harder to deny. Water crashes through the command center's weakening walls as Min-ji secures an unconscious Cho. The maintenance room lies just ahead, its reinforced door still sealed after 12 years. Both pendants pulse with soft light as they come together, triggering not just digital protocols, but physical locks. Inside, preserved in waterproof containers, lies the true heart of Sun Hwa's investigation. Evidence gathered by a network of agents she'd protected by taking sole responsibility. "Your mother," Min-ji tells Ji-eun through the comm as he retrieves the containers, "didn't just die protecting evidence. She died protecting her team, people who kept gathering proof even after she was gone. Everything in here. It's 12 years of continued investigation. She made sure the truth would come out only when you were ready to handle the consequences." Above ground, federal teams move with precision across Seoul, armed with actionable intelligence from Sun Hwa's files. Corrupt officials, compromised business leaders, and sleeper agents find themselves simultaneously exposed. The organization's carefully constructed hierarchy crumbles as its members rush to save themselves, offering evidence against each other in exchange for leniency. The final support structures begin to fail as Min-ji makes his way out, dragging Cho and carrying Sun-hwa's containers. Through his comm, he hears Ji-eun coordinating with rescue teams, her voice strong and sure. She's not just following in her mother's footsteps, he realizes. She's forging her own path, one that combines Sun-hwa's dedication to justice with his understanding of how to navigate shadows. Dad. Ji-eun's voice softens for a moment. Mom's files. There's a message here encoded just for me. She knew this day would come. Knew I'd have to make choices about what kind of person I want to be. The tunnels groan one final time as Min-ji reaches the extraction point. Behind him, 12 years of corruption and violence disappear under tons of concrete and water, but the truth they tried to bury rises to the surface, carried by a daughter's determination and a mother's final gift. 3 months after the tunnel collapse, Seoul's skyline glows golden in the late afternoon sun. The Golden Dragon building has been demolished, its ruins a testament to the night that changed everything. In its place, construction has begun on a new federal justice center, its foundation stronger for knowing the corruption it replaced. Min-ji stands at his penthouse window, watching his city heal as he reads the latest reports from Detective Kang's task force. The evidence from Sun-hwa's containers proved devastating. Hundreds of arrests across every level of society, from corrupt officials to business leaders who thought themselves untouchable. Madame Cho, recovered from her injuries, sits in a maximum security facility, her empire dismantled piece by piece. But more importantly, her network of influence over the next generation has been exposed and neutralized. The students at Seoul Arts Academy and other prestigious schools are free from the shadow of manipulation that threatened their futures. Ji-eun enters her father's office, no longer the uncertain teenager from 3 months ago. Her movements carry a new confidence, born not from violence but from understanding her place in a legacy of justice. She places her mother's pendant on Min-ji's desk, next to its twin recovered from Cho. Mom's message, she says softly. I think I finally understand what she was trying to tell me. The message decoded from Sun-hwa's files was simple but profound. My dearest Ji-eun, if you're reading this, you've already chosen your path. Not because of duty or revenge, but because you saw something worth protecting. The pendant isn't just a key to the past. It's a reminder that sometimes the brightest light comes from those willing to walk in shadows to protect others. Your father taught me that, though he may never admit it. Let him teach you too, but forge your own way. Agent Kim arrives with fresh intelligence. Yang has started talking, revealing deeper connections that spread beyond Korea's borders. The Dragon Phoenix was just one head of a larger organization, but Sun-hwa's evidence has given them the tools to fight back. More importantly, the students who were once targets for recruitment have become allies, using their privileged positions to expose corruption rather than enable it. The academy's different now, Ji-eun tells her father, a hint of pride in her voice. We've started a student coalition, working with federal agencies to identify and prevent exploitation. Mom's files showed us how they targeted vulnerable students, so we're building support systems instead. She hands Min-ji a proposal for a new security program, combining Park Securities resources with student-led initiatives. Min-ji reads the proposal, recognizing elements of his own tactical thinking merged with Sun-hwa's strategic vision. His daughter hasn't just inherited their skills, she's evolved them into something new. The ghost's daughter has become something more, a bridge between shadow and light, using her understanding of both worlds to protect others. Detective Kang joins them, bringing news about the former head of cybersecurity who betrayed Park Securities. He's cooperating, helping them identify other sleeper agents while under heavy protection. But his information feels almost redundant now. Sun-hwa's network of loyal agents, maintained in secret for 12 years, has provided them with something more valuable than just evidence. It's given them a blueprint for fighting back against corruption that spans generations. As the sun sets over Seoul, Min-ji watches Ji-eun demonstrate her new security protocols to Agent Kim. The Art Academy student who once needed protection has become a protector in her own right. On her desk sits a framed photo of Sun-hwa, her smile knowing as if she always knew this day would come. "Your mother would be proud," Min-ji tells Ji-eun later, as they share tea in the traditional style he learned during his darkest days. "Not just of what you've done, but of who you've chosen to be." Ji-eun touches the empty space where her pendant used to rest, understanding now that true strength isn't in secrets kept, but in truths revealed. "The ghost of Seoul can finally rest," she says, a slight smile playing at her lips. "But his daughter's work is just beginning. The pendants, now secured in a federal vault, are no longer needed. Their purpose wasn't just to protect evidence, but to ensure that when the truth finally emerged, it would come through hands strong enough to use it wisely." As night falls over the city, Min-ji receives one final report. The last of Cho's hidden accounts have been frozen, their assets redirected to fund programs protecting vulnerable students. The cycle of exploitation that claimed so many young lives has been broken, replaced by a network of protection built by the very generation they tried to corrupt. In his private moments, Min-ji still feels the weight of his past life, the shadow of the ghost he used to be. But watching his daughter transform her mother's sacrifice into a force for change, he understands that some ghosts don't need to rest. They need to evolve. The feared killer who once haunted Seoul's underworld has become something else. A father who taught his daughter not just how to fight in shadows, but how to bring light to them. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.